Introduction. The family's roots come from the earth. In the Middle Ages, the family was far more than an emotional arrangement. It was the core of survival. Today, when we say family, love, commitment, and individual choice come to mind. But from the 9th to the 15th centuries, in Europe's villages, castles, and monasteries, the word family meant economic power, lineage continuity, and God's order. The family was both the cell of society and a small model of God's world. Society as a whole resembled a hierarchical pyramid. At the top was God, then the king, nobles, clergy, knights, and at the bottom the peasants. Each class shaped its own family in accordance with this structure. 2. Marriage, more an agreement than love. In the Middle Ages, marriage wasn't about emotion. It was strategic. When a nobleman's daughter married another nobleman's son, it wasn't just two people uniting, but two families merging their interests. Lands expanded, alliances were formed. Particularly in the 11th and 12th centuries, marriages were among the most influential tools shaping the political map of Europe. Which girl married whom was generally the family's decision. Girls were typically betrothed at 12-14 years old. Men married around 16-18 years old. Before the marriage, a girl's dowry was determined. It displayed the family's wealth. Among peasants, the dynamic was similar, but the aim wasn't wealth, it was labor. The number of hands to work the land determined a family's fate. And love, yes, love existed, but mostly outside of marriage. In palaces, the poets praised platonic love, the unreachable passion toward married women. So love was idealized but rarely practiced, because marriage was a duty, not a feeling. 3. The woman's position, the invisible power in the Middle Ages. A woman was both sacred and dangerous. On one hand, she was exalted in the figure of the Virgin Mary. On the other, she was seen as the source of sin because of Eve. This dual perspective shaped women's place in society. Among the nobility, women were responsible for protecting family honor. After marriage, she didn't carry her husband's surname, but his inheritance and status. However, if her husband went to war, management of the property often passed to the wife. So there were women behind the scenes with significant administrative power. For peasant women, life passed between the field and the home. They woke with the sun, cared for children, fed animals, worked the land, and then headed to church. Religion for them was both consolation and oppression. An obedient woman is the woman God loves, a phrase frequently repeated in sermons. Of the man's role, the weight of power. In the Middle Ages, the man was both the head of the household and the representative of God's order. The king was God's shadow on earth. The father held the same role in his home. A father was teacher, protector, and judge. He made the family's economic decisions, organized inheritance, and directed his children's fate. But this duty was more than power. It was a heavy social burden. If a father failed, he disgraced not only his family but his lineage. Among the nobility, raising a male child was considered an investment in the future. Boys from a young age learned to use weapons, ride horses, fight. In peasant families, sons replaced their fathers by working the fields. Being the pillar of the home was both a physical and a divine duty. Children, God's purposes. The modern idea of childhood hardly existed in the Middle Ages. By the age of 6, a child was expected to act like an adult. Noble children were educated, sent to church, or placed as an apprentice with another lord. Peasant children helped with their family's work. Infant mortality was very common. Therefore, every newborn was baptized at once. Life was short, death a close possibility. It was ordinary for a mother to give birth 5 times and raise only 2. According to the church, children were God's trust and had to be raised with discipline. Love existed, but it wasn't shown. Physical punishment was accepted as normal in education. As one proverb said, "If you spare the rod on the child, you leave his soul in darkness." 6. The shadow of religion over the family. In the Middle Ages, the family was seen as a miniature of God's world. The church interfered in everything from marriage to child-rearing. Clergy blessed marriages but categorically rejected divorce. The sole purpose of marriage was the continuation of lineage, not pleasure. Sexuality was only for reproduction. The church deemed extramarital relations a mortal sin. Yet paradoxically, even in monasteries secret liaisons occurred. Noble courts keeping mistresses was commonplace. So while the church's authority was everywhere, people still found their ways. The church also condemned behaviors that would disrupt the family order. A woman opposing her husband, a child disobeying his father, these could be considered religious sins. Thus the family was not only a social but a moral system. 7. Family life according to the classes nobility. Their families lived in castles. Marriages were alliances. Women sometimes married without ever meeting their husbands. But some noble women, for example Eleanor of Aquitaine, held extraordinary power. Educated, politically astute, even commanding armies. That was the era's contradiction. The system suppressed women, yet some knew how to use it. Peasants, life was simpler but more real. The family was the backbone of agriculture. Peasant couples worked together. Children too became laborers. Marriage might take place more freely because lords cared less who married whom than that the harvest was collected. Clergy. Priests, monks and nuns had no biological family, but monasteries functioned as a kind of spiritual family. Discipline. Obedience, love, service. These were the family concept's religious counterpart. In the church, the idea of God's children could replace the biological family. 8. Love, loyalty, and emotions. In the Middle Ages, the concept of love was usually lived outside marriage. In the courts, the culture of courtoisie, courtly love, developed. A knight would pledge his loyalty to a married woman, but the relationship would not be physical. That was almost like an act of devotion. The woman was inspiration, the man a symbol of loyalty. But among ordinary folk, emotions were more openly lived. Their peasant husband and wife, despite all the exhaustion, worked the field together, ate the same soup, got soaked in the same rain. Their love wasn't measured by poetry, but by solidarity. 9. Inheritance and the continuation of lineage. Lineage determined a family's fate in the Middle Ages. Inheritance was usually given to the eldest male child, primogeniture. That caused serious clashes between siblings. Younger boys often became priests or knights. Girls were sent to monasteries or married into other families. Women rarely inherited, though if no male heir existed, they could. Yet even then, the husband usually managed her property. So at the center of the system was the continuation of the male line. The name of the lineage lived on with the inheritance, and that was how a family achieved immortality. X. Those who broke the rules. Of course, as in every era, there were rule breakers. Children born out of wedlock, secret love affairs, runaway lovers. The church handed out harsh punishments, but every prohibition was still secretly lived. Some women, when widowed, refused to remarry and manage their own lives. Some peasants loved despite their lord's wishes. And some nobles, even kings, stood up for their love. These people were the first cracks in the walls of the Middle Ages. East Contins, the wind of change. Late Middle Ages. And in the 15th century, Europe underwent big transformations. Plagues, crusades, increased trade, urbanization. These changed family structures too. People began to rely not just on land, but on themselves. Love marriages gradually emerged. Women started doing business and learning trades in cities. The church's absolute authority began to crack. This era was the birth of the modern idea of family. Marriage now became about not only lineage, but also emotions. Love ceased to belong solely to God. It began to belong to people. In conclusion, a warmth between stones. In the Middle Ages, the family was more than an institution. It was humanity's most primitive yet most enduring bond. In that era when people lived through hunger, war, plague, they still clung to each other. Love was concealed, respect was severe, life was tough, but the family remained the safest haven. Today, when the word family conjures warmth, sincerity, love, it once meant discipline, duty, and destiny. Yet even behind all those cold stone walls, a mother hugged her child, a father prayed for his family. Maybe that's why 1,000 years later, the word family still touches our heart.